I am Mark Sargent, and this is The Sit Down. Everybody here can agree on absolutely one thing, which is it is not a globe.
For centuries, a flat Earth was accepted as certainty until science and sailboats said otherwise.
One of the rules of power is you never admit that there's someone bigger than yourself.
But in 2015, this guy, Mark Sargent, posted his flat Earth clues.
Part of a series of clues that can help you get your head around both the design of the flat Earth system we live in.
You're kind of the father of this movement. How would you?
Don't do that.
You're the one who sort of started it all.
I did not invent flat Earth. All I did was walk up to a door, point at it, say, you know what? I think there's some really interesting things on the other side of this, and check it out for yourself. If flat Earth is a university, FEA, then I would be the freshman recruiter.
People have traveled from around, actually, Mark would say, across the flat world to attend.
I'll read these questions in order. Number one, to people who don't know who you are, describe yourself. All right, let's get right to it. I am a flat earther. I am part of the great flat earth community, which really took off at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015 until now. I started out as a professional gamer, played games professionally for a publishing house out in Boulder, Colorado, and then taught proprietary software for about 20 years there. Traveled around the country and sometimes outside the country and taught people how to understand difficult software. It was time and attendance software, and so I broke it down into small chunks, and it really helped me once I got into the subject that I'm dealing with now. 2, how did you begin this journey of becoming a YouTuber? I was on YouTube, and like a lot of people, just was there watching videos. I didn't really make any content for years and years. And then I finally got into YouTubing when I got into the flat earth topic. I looked at it in the summer of 2014 and thought it was a piece of junk. Didn't think there was much to it until I watched a video that talked about flight paths in the southern hemisphere and how they didn't make sense on a globe, and the connections were all wrong, and it only made sense on a flat world. Okay, that's pretty good. And then I watched another video by a guy named Matt Boylan, a Canadian out of Montreal, Canada, and from there I worked on it and tried to solve and tried to debunk flat Earth for about 9 months, and then in the beginning of 2015 I put out my first series of YouTube videos.
Theory. For those who have already started seeing things with new eyes,
called Flat Earth Clues, and was really put out there as a thought experiment, just like, okay, prove me wrong. I don't think it's a globe anymore. I think it may be flat, and that the Truman Show is actually more of a real movie, that we're living in basically a giant Truman Show. And that's where the journey started. And ever since then, I think as of this taping, I am at about 600 videos, all of which are flat Earth related, and I've been interviewed 100 and something times, and have websites and podcasts and apps and a book. I didn't even write the book. A company called me up and had me write a book. Number 3, what triggered you to want to discover the truth? The truth about anything. Again, I'm a conspiracy guy. Even more than a flat earther, I started out as a conspiracy guy. I grew up on a rural island up in the northwest corner of the United States, up near Seattle, called Whidbey, Whidbey. And I wanted to discover the truth. I didn't think anybody lied. I honestly thought that nobody in the positions of authority would lie about anything. Governments and corporations, politicians, anybody in the position of authority. I grew up very, very sheltered, very, very naive. Then I saw in the early 90s Oliver Stone's great movie JFK, where he interspliced real footage from that era with his own footage, and did it so well that I remember being in the theater. I saw it opening weekend, and there were a lot of upset people there, and it was a fantastic movie. Really, really loved it. And that's what started me down the conspiracy path, where, you know, I looked at just about every conspiracy you could think of. Some I liked, some I didn't. You know, I don't think there's anybody out in the conspiracy world that believes everything. But at the same time, now that I'm into the greatest conspiracy of all time, Flat Earth, I can't discount anything anymore, except for, you know, maybe Elvis having Bigfoot's baby, but we'll get into that. Number 4, in your words, how important is the internet to you? Well, the internet's the pinnacle of media right now. You're not going to get... The internet is the apex of what we were always aspiring to have, and that was an integrated media system that encompasses all media. So it's not only a connection device, and I know people have written clever little things, you know, what the internet was and what it is now. But what it is now is everything. It is, I mean, in fact, we've got a generation of people, I'm a little older, but if the generation of kids growing up now, that without the internet, they'd be absolutely lost. They're connected to everything and everyone. Social media has changed the landscape of how people deal with each other. I don't necessarily think for the better. You know, I'm old school. You know, I remember the old days when parents would yell at their kids for staying on the phone too long, and now it's text. No kids even talk to each other. It's all text. And it's like, all right, I suppose. But yeah, the internet's, for me, you know, online gaming, which is the ultimate gaming scenario for me, and all the access to media. Really, without high speed, a lot of big bandwidth internet and social media, what I'm into now, the whole flat earth thing, wouldn't be there. It was absolutely integral for that. Number 5, for people who haven't seen or heard of your work, explain what you are trying to accomplish. What I'm trying to accomplish, change the world, for lack of a better term. I'm just trying to get the truth out there. I'm trying to get a message out there that I didn't think for a second I'd be a part of. It's, you know, I didn't choose Flat Earth. Flat Earth chose me, along with a lot of people. Nobody got into this thinking they were going to do anything with it. They all thought it was a piece of crap. The t-shirt should read, different than the Flat Earth t-shirt I'm wearing now, should read, I became a Flat Earther because I tried to debunk Flat Earth. That's how everybody gets into it. So as far as what I'm trying to accomplish, create a new golden age, perhaps, to get to some sort of resolution with this civilization. Are we going to go into the tragic ending, or are we going to go into the happy ending? I don't know. The 100th monkey effect, though, is my immediate goal, which is, you guys don't know what 100th monkey effect, well, you'll look that up. I'm not going to explain it here, but it's where human beings all of a sudden realize that, you know, without a lot of, you know what, I have to explain the 100th monkey effect. 100th monkey effect was when scientists found out that when they were dropping sweet potatoes on the beach for a particular group of monkeys, the monkeys didn't like eating the sand, and a few of them figured out that if you washed the sweet potatoes in the water, in the salt water, that you get the sand off of them, it was much tastier to eat. Well, what they figured out was, and this is creepy, and some people debate that it happened, but no, I absolutely believe it, because it makes sense in nature, how nature works. That once a certain number of monkeys, and they just came up with the 100th monkey, once like the 100th monkey figured out that if you wash the sand off the potato, that it was easier to eat, all the rest of the monkeys immediately knew. And not just the ones in that area, but ones on islands that weren't even connected by land to that area. It's like all monkeys, it's like they were all, if you believe in software updates, it's like all the monkeys were updated with that new knowledge. And it's fascinating. And so I think that people aren't immune to that, and that's where we're headed. That eventually this topic will get to a point where nobody makes fun of it anymore. It becomes a topic, a a non-ridiculed actual topic, and then science has something to deal with. Number 6. How long have you been truth-seeking? 20 years? Whenever JFK came out. I don't know the exact year, but that's how long I've been doing it. As soon as I watched that movie, I realized that people lied, and that corporations lie, and the saying is true. Not only is history written by the winners, I like Napoleon's version better, which is history is just lies that are agreed upon. Meaning an event happens, and then the powers that be at the time sit down at a table and say, okay, how are we going to spin this? How are we going to tell the people? Because, there's an old saying, I think FDR said it, an American president. He said, give the people only as much truth as they can handle. And that has been the rule that the powers that be have followed for a long, long time. So, number 7, what is the most shocking thing you've discovered? It's this right now, that you may not be living on a globe. That in the 1950s, up until the 1950s, the only reason you knew you were on a globe was because science told you, because you had a globe in your classroom. And then the question comes, okay, let's say eventually in the 1950s you finally get a rocket up high enough to where you can actually take a picture of the Earth. If you got up there and you figured out that the Earth wasn't what you thought it was, would you, as the institution of science, would you tell the population? Probably not. And I'll use a religious example just for argument's sake. If the Catholic Church figured out that the Virgin Mary's name wasn't Mary, it was Susan, that's kind of a lesser degree, but it's like, would they tell everybody? No, they wouldn't. The story's already in place. They'd have to rewrite a whole bunch of stuff, and that's just a simple name change. So when it comes to the world, and all of a sudden you've been preaching the globe for 450 years and you were wrong, you are not telling anybody. That is an easy decision. I absolutely agree with the powers that be at the time, but they had to work in, and maybe that's what's happening now. They had to work in a plan because you couldn't hide it forever. Again, it was like hiding a pack of cigarettes from your roommates. You can move it around here and there, but you're not going to be able to hide it forever. Let's see, number 8. Where are you from? I am from Whidbey Island, Washington. WHIDBEY, Washington. I grew up in Seattle. I was born in Seattle. And then I grew up, all my schooling, primary and intermediate and high school, was all in the school system of South Whidbey. And then I spent a year drinking at Washington State University, and then spent the next 3 years, because I threw out all the grades from Washington State, at Western Washington University until I got thrown out for making explosives on campus. What's your take on being chipped? Would you take it? No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. That is one of those things that, I'm sorry, you talk about programming. It's been told to me many, many times. Everyone knows the drill there. You're going to get chipped, you're going to get marked. And if you've come from a religious background, and I was raised born-again Christian, yeah, you probably don't want to do that. Now, does that mean a lot of people will start? The thing is, it's hypocritical right now, and I don't know if it's ever going to change. Some major event's going to happen before people get chipped, because there's too many things that rely on cash. And one of those very, very large things is the illicit drug trade, prostitution, a lot of things that are morally or ethically questionable, but they rely on that. So unless you're going to tell me you're going to throw out that stuff or try to come up with a way of doing it, I don't think Bitcoin's going to be the answer. No, chipping's not going to work. So I'm not really worried about being chipped, because I just don't think it's going to happen. Number 10, on the topic of flat Earth, why would the government or military keep it a secret? That's easy, and I get that question once a week at least from people. You're just not thinking big enough, and that is, and I made one of my clues based on that question, which is, okay, you are the UN and you tell people tomorrow, you make an announcement, say, oh yeah, by the way, science was wrong about all those globes in the classroom, in every classroom, in every university and school, basically in every school in every country, they were wrong. 3 things happen, and they're big, big things. The first thing is the educational. The academic institutions just get decimated. right off the bat. There's a lot of academic turmoil. You know, just we'll take just the obvious. Astronomy and astrophysics, they go away. They don't even open their doors tomorrow because they don't exist technically. If you're in a Truman Show, then astronomy is meaningless, and so is astrophysics. Everything about astronomy, the math revolving around astronomy, it's all gone. And then the remaining physical sciences, and just take whatever you want: geology, hydrology, biology, archaeology, anything with an ology on it, that has to be retooled literally from the ground up. No play on words there, but it's true. You have to rebuild these things. So a lot of textbooks have to be thrown out, and you have to rebuild. Imagine being a university and having to deal with that. Academia is we just take a pounding on that. That's just academia, all right? Not to mention all the observatories, every observatory in the world being closed down, but that's minor by comparison. The second would be economic. You know, little things cause huge economic turmoil in our world. If you all of a sudden said that, oh yeah, you're an enclosed structure, you'd have to put a pause. You'd have to suspend trading for weeks, if not months, to let the people try to figure out what happens to the markets. Because all of a sudden now, I'll take the one of the most obvious, and that is the defense departments. All those big companies that make military weapons and sell them. You know, if you're an enclosed world, then you're all in the same system, and you're part of the same boat, the same lifeboat, the same house. Are you going to still keep going to war? Now, some people say, oh no, you're still going to war. I'm going, you wouldn't be going as much war, I would think, because you'd be kind of distracted. Seriously, if you're going to keep firing artillery shells, are you going to keep firing missiles at the guys across from you? And here's where it changes, right? Here's what I mean, is you are part of the same group, right? And you'd say, well, no, I'd still keep firing cannons at the guy across from me. That ties into the third one. The second and third one, economic and spiritual, are really linked together. And that is, okay, you gotta remember, if you're in an enclosed world, the idea of a higher power, I'm not necessarily going to say divine, because we're going to be splitting hairs here, but whoever built this place is a lot bigger than us. And let's face it, 8 out of 10 people in the world belong to one of the major 5 religions: Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. So those people are going to look at it as divine, and which means it's something that the 5 major religions have always wanted. And that is some sort of proof of divine intelligence or intelligent design, and they've got it. So again, do you still go to war in that era? And I just don't think you would. And again, once you get on the spiritual path, then you've got this huge paradigm shift, which all of a sudden science has a lot of questions they have to answer, and science's credibility is the foundation is just rattled, just heavily shaken, and they don't know what to do. And it's a big responsibility on religion, because religion's first reaction would be knee-jerk, and that is to come after science and say, wait a minute, so you were wrong about this whole Earth thing. So what else are you wrong about? What about this evolution stuff you've been talking about? What about the Big Bang? What about anything? You know, science would be backpedaling. They would be on the ropes. And if you think I'm kidding, you got to look at stuff like the core of the Earth question, which is it's a perfect example of it. Which is, if you believe mainstream science, we've seen all the cross section of the Earth. You know, it has a red band and an orange band and a yellow band and a white band. If you believe mainstream science, it's about 4,000 miles to get to the center of the Earth, and then another 4,000 miles to get to the other side. Well, how do they know that? Well, how deep a probe have they sent? 2,000 miles? 1,000 miles? 100? 10? No, none of those things. The deepest hole ever drilled is 8 miles. And yet, they will still show you a perfect cross-section of the Earth with these nice, tidy 1,000-mile thick bands going all the way to the center. How do they know this? They don't. In fact, you can look up in any of the science journals, they'll tell you, oh yeah, we're extrapolating, we're expanding. They don't have any freaking idea. But what they don't do is they don't put disclaimers. This is where science falls short. They don't put disclaimers on the bottoms of those illustrations, because they're all just illustrations. There's no pictures, obviously. And they don't say, we don't really know. They won't put a question mark in there. And the problem is like, well, we're making an educated guess. People don't know. It's like, no. A kid doesn't know this. So a kid opens up that textbook, and he sees this every year for his entire educational career, and by the time he comes out, he believes that cross-section is absolutely gospel, even though he doesn't know the deepest hole ever drilled is 8 miles. And they say, oh, we got ground penetrating radar and seismic this, and it's like, no, you don't know. You absolutely do not know, but you're not going to say that. Science has turned themselves, science says that they don't make leaps of faith, but they absolutely do. And, I'm not saying that science is bad. I'm not doing an anti-intellectual movement here. I like science discoveries as much as the next guy. Light bulbs are great. Air conditioning, super great. Microwave ovens, convenient. But they've made some mistakes. I'm not talking the military mistakes where they make things like nerve gas and napalm and the atom bomb. Those are specific projects they're paid to do. But what they do is rush products to market. Don't think for a second that science is incorruptible, that science can't be bought. I don't know how many examples you want me to throw at you. Just on the top of my head, lead paint, lead gasoline, DDT, asbestos, I don't know. How about the scientists that were all paid to tell people that cigarettes were not bad for you? Matter of fact, there were doctors that recommended on television, that you can look up the commercials now, recommended cigarettes. They were marketing cigarettes to children. And we all know they're horrible for you. They're absolutely the worst. And so don't tell me that science doesn't make their fault. The difference is when science makes mistakes, a lot of people die. And I think they should be accountable for it. Anyway, what else we got? Number 11, do you believe in Area 51? And what do you think really goes on there? Well, of course, we all know Area 51 exists. They've taken pictures of it. The camera technology we've got, our zoom technology, is so great that even though they bought up all the property around Groom Lake, which really started out as a super secret Air Force base, Area 51, it's pretty remarkable, actually, that we can have a top secret military base inside the United States. Of course, you put it in a desert in the middle of nowhere. It's a perfect place for aircraft testing. And the famous story, if you want to look this up, it's a great story. I love it because it coincides with men in power, because I firmly believe the last president with any power at all was Dwight D. Eisenhower, who was the Allied commander during World War II. And I think one of the last 5-star generals. And the story goes that when he became president, he found out after the fact that Area 51 was built. And he called up, and why would they brief him? He's the president. Presidents are so far down on the totem pole. They're just a front man in a band. That's all they are. And he called him up and says, hey, I heard about this Area 51. And this was back when Area 51 was a new base, really, really new. And he goes, I'd like to come out and see. And they say, sorry, you don't have clearance. And this was quite an insult to him. You're talking about the guy that commanded the greatest army of all time. Well, at least the winning army. And he said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. See, I still have friends that are all generals, and I'm going to call up my buddy down the 1st Army, and we're just going to roll into Nevada and just take a look for ourselves. What do you think about that? And again, he was one of the last presidents that could use that sort of card. And so, yeah, Area 51 absolutely exists, no question. You don't put up all those signs and do those contract work for all those the special cars that drive around and have a special airline that flies in the people. No, of course it's real. It's a secret military base. We love secrets. We love that. We want most that which we cannot have, and people love a mystery. And it's not a mystery. It's a secret military base. Now, what they're testing there, are they testing advanced weapons? Yes. Are they reverse engineering spaceships? Yeah, maybe. On any topic you want, give the viewers some knowledge. All right. I'm going to stick with Flat Earth, because once you start looking into it, every other conspiracy becomes second tier. Becomes second tier and third tier, as a matter of fact. If you want to look into this, and I'll preface it with this. If if you enjoy your life, if you think you got a good, again, the line from Men in Black, if you think you got a good beat on things, you like getting up in the morning and think you got everything pretty much situated, don't look into Flat Earth. Don't do it. Do not open that box, because it is a Pandora's box, and it will mess you up. It will, all of a sudden, you will lose sleep. You'll just be watching this stuff time and time again, and before it's over, you're going to want to start telling people, and then they're going to laugh at you. But it's totally worth it if you can do it, if you can get through the end of the tunnel, because it is fantastic. There are a lot of aspects there which you've got to look into, and I don't have nearly the time to go over it now. You can just go and look at some of the videos I made, and everybody else's videos I made. But look at things like, to give you some knowledge, the first picture of the Earth that was taken from space was taken in 1972. The second picture of the Earth taken from space, we're talking full disk sunlight picture, was taken 2 years ago. That's 43 years. 43 years. All the space programs, nobody took a picture of the Earth from space. No probes, no the Hubble telescope, Soyuz, nobody took a picture of the Earth from space. Why not? That's an awful long time, and I was one of those people that could not see the forest for the trees back in 2000 when I was looking for pictures of the Earth from space, because I always wanted to put them on monitors for a tech support team that I was running. And literally, I typed in every Boolean string I could ever think of to try to figure out, to get images, in Google. And it was showing me the exact same image, which was just Apollo 17. And you think I'm kidding? The first blue marble shot that was put on the very first iPhone had to be photoshopped from scratch by a NASA consultant. He's the first one to tell you that. He said it on a podcast where he says, "Yeah, I did it because there were really no pictures of Earth from space for me to use." It's like, that was in 2000. That's just one thing. There's never been a video, even now today, of an astronaut outside a spacecraft turning the camera 180 degrees or further. There's never been a camera running constantly from the rocket launch pad all the way up until it leaves Earth orbit. Nobody on the moon ever turned around with the camera. There is still no picture of the Earth rotating on its axis with the weather morphing simultaneously. You can get one or the other. You can, and nowadays, and even that only happened in 2015. You can get the Earth rotating on its axis, or you can get it sitting there with the weather morphing, but you can't get both. Why? We don't even have videos of any astronaut in an airlock where he opens up the airlock and he walks out with it, and it's because it's all staged. The entire NASA program was faked since minute one. You got to look at it for yourself. Look up things like the Orion Trial by Fire video. The Orion, which is the Americans Mars program. Why they released a video on NASA.gov called Orion Trial by Fire, where they're saying that the first capsules they send up are going to be unmanned because they can't figure out how to get past the Van Allen radiation belts. And my response would be, what are you talking about? The Van Allen radiation belts were solved in the 1960s. If you believe that, they went through Apollo 8 through Apollo 17. Nobody died, nobody got radiation poisoning, nobody even got cancer. And they spent hours in those Van Allen belts, which he announced in 1959. NASA employee Van Allen himself said that they were deadly. Okay, how did you get through them if they were deadly? Because you had no shielding. You can only shield yourself from radiation two different ways: lead and gold. We've used lead in the dentist's office. Gold is twice as heavy as lead, but it's also super, super expensive. What shielding did they use? And you can look up the specs on the capsules. There was no shielding. A little bit of aluminum, some plastic. That's it. They were just rickety. There was nothing to them. You might as well have taken a plane, a commercial jet airliner. Look into things like the Antarctic Treaty, the 1959 treaty, which was announced the same year as the Van Allen belt, and that is that no corporation from any country anywhere can set up shop in Antarctica forever. And it was put in 1959 after the last official mission by Admiral Byrd. Look that guy up, Admiral Richard E. Byrd. Tons of stuff to look up on that guy, who went down there during Operation Deep Freeze. He was down there for 30 years, from 1928 all the way up until his death in about 1957, looking for something, looking for the edge of the world. It's not what you think. It's not the Antarctic coastline. We're not talking about the old school thoughts where it's like, oh yeah, the water just falls off the edge. No. Antarctica is a massive, massive continent, way bigger than they tell you. It plateaus out at 2 miles high, and the coastline is usually about a 200-foot wall of ice. That alone would keep any water in. But trying to find the edge once you get past the Antarctic coastline took him 30 years. And then after that, whatever he found was so scary that they decided that no corporation from any country could ever make money down there. And even the stranger thing is that all the countries signed on to it. Nobody owns Antarctica. Nobody. Find me another piece of real estate on this world where nobody owns it. I mean, and it's unilateral. Even people we weren't friendly with. China in the 1950s, Russia during the Cold War, UK, everybody. If you're an economic power, everybody signed this. It's a fascinating thing. Find me the curvature of the Earth. Look up the curvature of the Earth. 8 inches per mile squared. Look it up. Do some research. There's some fascinating stuff there. Okay, anyway, that's my knowledge I'm going to give you. I'm not even sure how long this thing's supposed to run, but we're just going to finish out the questions. There's 3 more. What's your take on Eric Snowden? He releases news. He hasn't touched Flat Earth yet, as far as I know. He probably should. Eric Snowden, I will lump in with every other conspiracy, and that is, if it's not Flat Earth, it's second tier. Find me something bigger than the world being hidden from you. Find something bigger than a real-life Truman Show scenario. If there is something bigger, there's only one thing bigger than that I know of, and that is what happens when you die. The secret of the afterlife. And who knows, maybe we'll get to that. But as far as Eric Snowden's concerned, I mean, yeah, he's released some great stuff. 3-4 years ago, I might have said, oh yeah, he's a great guy and very, very relevant. But in our world, in the Flat Earth community that I deal with, his name doesn't come up. Sorry. In fact, the only time he ever comes up is like, yeah, he should probably talk about it. That's it. Then we stop talking about him. Sorry. Number 14, have you heard about Walmart closing in certain places abruptly, and why? Yes, I have. Again, we've heard all the things. Are there secret underground bases? Are there tunnels? Is everyone getting ready for FEMA camps? Yes, and also, again, dovetails into the Flat Earth thing. We know that Flat Earth isn't the end game. It's part of something bigger. It seems like Flat Earth is almost kind of like a way to get people open-minded, to get people to open up to different concepts. And so, yeah, when you get into the whole community that I'm into, you have to reevaluate and revisit just about every conspiracy you can think of. And it's been interesting. So yeah, heard about it. Number 15, last question. Would you consider yourself a conspiracy theorist? If so, elaborate. Yeah, definitely. If you're a flat earther, you're definitely a conspiracy theorist. I was a conspiracy guy beforehand. I believed in, I still do. I do believe in a lot of things, and I won't go over too many of them, but there's very few conspiracies I don't believe in nowadays, because how can I shoot them down? Was 9/11 a conspiracy, an inside job? Yeah, it was. You want the crib notes on that? Look up Building 7. Two planes supposedly hit the Twin Towers, but Building 7, which was over here, that just started burning and then collapsed at free fall speed once everybody was off the island. For no apparent reason. The 50-story building just collapsed. Didn't crumble, didn't dissolve away, didn't slough off in places, just dropped like a sack of rice. And what was more interesting about that, you're going, well, that doesn't prove anything. Oh, no. What's more interesting, and you can watch the video footage, was the British television team that reported it falling, Building 7 falling, 20 minutes before it actually fell. How did they know this? How did they know that Building 7 was going to go down? I can tell you exactly how, because I was in the time and attendance industry. And one of the things, the side effects of working in the time and attendance industry is you're really good on time zones. Most Americans don't even know. There's 4 time zones in the United States. Most Americans say, well, there's Pacific, there's Central, and then there's Eastern, because that's where all the people are. No, there's a mountain time zone. That's where Denver is, and Salt Lake City, and El Paso, San Antonio. I can't remember where the one in Texas is, but there's not a lot of people. It's the smallest demographic, but it's still there. It's a whole time zone, and people don't even know that. So what happened is when the initial 9/11 thing happened, They came over, they flew over, and they had, they're setting up shop. And someone gave them a script to read at a certain time, but they screwed up the time zones. They didn't, by 1 hour, that was it. So instead of reporting that the building fell 40 minutes after it fell, they reported it 20 minutes before it fell. And and you can see it. It's in the background. It's burning behind her. It's so classic. She's sitting there reporting this building has fallen. It's literally burning over her shoulder, and it was incredible. That's just 9/11. Sandy Hook. It's a small regional operation, but you got to look at it. Look at things like, I don't know. There's 600 kids. And they screwed up there, because when they announced it, they said everyone was still on lockdown, but the suspect was dead. And yet when the helicopters were there, full of gas, because they were the traffic copters, nobody ever came out there. Find me, I'll give $1,000 to anybody that shows me a video, not a still shot, a video of a SWAT team member carrying a single kid out of that building. None. No, and I know I'm stealing this. There was another guy who was saying, look, I'll give $5,000 to whoever says. We got like 3 still shots of kids in a parking lot, even though we never saw any video footage of those kids in a parking lot. Where'd those photos come from? Why weren't there SWAT teams? 600 kids. You know how long that would take to get 600 kids? Because you do it room by room. You wouldn't let those kids walk anywhere. You'd be carrying them all out. They're tiny. And all the SWAT guys are jacked up on adrenaline. They'd be carried out in waves, shielded by body armor. Because you don't know if there's a second suspect. Never happened. Oh, and one more thing about the Sandy Hook thing I just got to throw in there. You notice when you're looking at the aerial footage, there's something missing. And it's real obvious, but you probably won't catch it until I say it. And that is, out of all those cop cars, all the emergency vehicles, fire departments, the lack of paramedic vehicles, that's a whole other thing. None of them had their lights on. That place should have been lit up like a Christmas tree on the 4th of July. There should have been so many red and blue lights going off. No lights were turned on, not even by accident. How has that even happened? Why wouldn't that happen? That's protocol. Let's see. Boston bombing. No, I'm not a big believer in that. But I'm a big believer in the older conspiracies. Look into all the American wars. That I find me a legitimate American war that was ever fought, and that going into where we told the right story, like the American the War of 1812, the American Civil War, the Mexican American War, the Spanish American War, World War I, World War II. Look into the backstories behind those. They're fascinating, because again, history is written by the winners, and we just spin the tale however we want. JFK, lone gunman, come on. Nobody should be believing. Even most Americans don't even believe that anymore. A lone gunman. I mean, the Oliver Stone movie was brilliant, but if you still believe that JFK was killed by a lone gunman, look, I shoot. I know rifles. That was the most piece of crap rifle anyway, and you're saying that guy was just making great hits from that angle, from that building. Plus, why was he shooting from that angle anyway? Don't get me started. Just watch the movie on that. And then the last one would be the moon landing. And this will tie back. This will dovetail back into the why the flat Earth made so much sense to me. For the longest time, I did not know why the Americans would fake the space program. I got the technical parts, and that is, if you look at the moon, there's so many production mistakes there. The shadows that are going in different directions, even though there should only be one light source, which is the sun. The blast crater that wasn't there. The moon buggies. How in the world did they get those things there? Why would they even have moon cars? No dust anywhere. Lack of feats of strength. The fact that nobody was jumping as high as they could be, the fact that nobody seemed to care. They're playing golf on the moon. Why would you bring golf clubs, for one? And why would you not care? They seem to have no regard for their own lives. Even though their statistics say that psychologically, at least one of them should have flipped out. Would have been like really introverted and be like, I just want to get home. I just want to get home. Because you should be checking your oxygen meters the entire time. Plus, did we actually have the computing programming power to pull that thing off? No. But the bigger question is why? Why would you fake it? And for the longest time, I mean years, at least 10 years for me, I did not know why the Americans would fake it. I got it as like, oh, rah, wave the flag, we're great, you're not. Make us put us up on a pedestal. I get that. It's a good reason, but it's not a great reason. And Flat Earth changed that. Flat Earth says that no, Americans didn't want to fake the space program; they had to. If you do not fake the space program, eventually, well, one, you have to show people the picture. That's the biggest thing, which is you're going sooner or later you're going to have to show people a picture of the Earth. The globe in the classroom isn't going to cut it anymore. Well, you can't just hand people the picture. You got to explain to them how they do it. It turns out it's probably the most expensive picture, even though it's fake, of all time, because you have to design a space program just to give the at least the logistics of how you took the picture. It's like, oh yeah, our space program went high enough and then we finally took the picture, even though they waited so long to take it. You know, they didn't take it. Apollo 8, Apollo 9, all the way through 16. Nobody took a picture. Last mission on the way back finally took one picture. Find me a vacation group that does even that badly when it comes to documenting your stuff. They took tons and tons of pictures on the moon, took no pictures on the way back until the very last mission, and then milked that thing forever. And on top of that, look at this American picture. Why aren't you taking a picture of the North American continent? Why are you the only continent they ever showed us in entirety was Antarctica, and from 1972 until 2015. It's amazing. Anyway, I can go on and on. I digress. I go into the weeds sometimes, but you know what? There's no rules for this, so we're just doing this. So that's it. I don't know how to sign off other than say, is there anything else here? Send your social media handles. Okay, I won't even talk about that. So anyway, thank you guys for listening. And again, don't believe anything I say. If you made it this far, then you got to be somewhat intrigued. Do your own research. Ask questions. Don't sell this thing, the Flat Earth, short. Everybody makes fun of it right away. I made fun of it for months, and now I am about as deep into it as I can, and this thing's not getting killed. Heck, we have a convention. Okay, I'll end on this. It's gotten so big now to where we actually have a Flat Earth conference. First time, 500 years. Flat Earth conference. First time ever in the United States. Is going to be in Raleigh, North Carolina this fall. So check it out. Just go to fe2017.com. Anyway, like to thank the Sit Down for a chance to interview, and you guys have a great rest of your day.